All right, we're gonna have some fun on this one today. Um, we are the Florida Hockey Bros. My name is David. I'm joined by my brother Dario, and we're gonna do a couple of top five lists today that that we're gonna have fun with, especially once you guys hear mine. It's gonna it's gonna get interesting. um, and Yeah, we're gonna do a top five most underrated and overrated players in the league. Two separate lists, one for overrated, one for underrated, and um, and we'll go from there. But we'll start with my brother. He just told me he has something to say, so let's see what it is.
Yeah, and we'll do a Stan Bowman reaction real quick before we get into that list too, if for anybody interested in that. Uh, just wanted to get a couple things off my chest because we mentioned last video that we wanted to lean into more of the Leafs and Panthers kind of a podcast, and we're going to do that. I think we're going to we may not do it every single episode, but or every single recording, but it's going to be pretty common. I think we're interested in it. Again, we're just trying to have fun, but also try to bring a little bit of an informed perspective. There was one comment, whatever, last video that kind of pissed me off because there were a couple of things in it that I kind of have an issue with. One is this idea that we're trying to have a thoughtful conversation about the pundits, and we were trying to make that clear distinction between fans and pundits in Toronto. And the comment seemed to reflect the fact that one, the distinction wasn't being made, and like we're not knowledgeable at all about the market and all this stuff. Which we're not living there. We haven't been Toronto fans forever, so I get that. But as I mentioned, we do consume a lot of the stuff there. And then the other one was sort of like this parsing of like what Steve Dangle said, and like I don't know, this person came across as like a Dangle fan and who didn't like what we had to say or what I had to say about it. So I'm just going to double down because this is what we do here. And I'm going to make some stuff clear for anybody who's listening to this who's a Leafs fan. If you're a rah-rah dumb Leaf fan, this is not for you. Like, I don't care. I don't no need to subscribe, need to follow. Not interested in that. It's like I'm going to follow the Dan Levitard formula down here in Miami. We're trying to have fun, but we're also trying to be informed and trying to be realistic about the full picture, and try and look at our own team, the Panthers, with a critical eye. I've been critical of the Panthers in the previous iteration. My brother knows how much I wanted Huberdeau going after that playoff run, even though a lot of fanboys loved them and stuff, how much I've criticized the front office, how much I sort of said Maurice was a great coach, even when most Panther fans hated their hire. Like, everybody has their opinions, but I'm trying to be informed and trying to look at some of the layers. And in some of these cases, I've been proven right because I am looking into the layers, not just being a rah-rah fan. And so that's kind of the point of this. And I'm going to go for the heart of this, just to make it clear from now. The issue with the Leafs and the pundits and the way that people look at the team, this is the issue. Steve Dangle called McMahon a sniper, he did that, literally said a sniper, like he even emphasized it, right? And I know he means a guy who can snipe. The comment was trying to parse it out, whatever. Like, if you had listened to Dangle for a long time, you know what he means. Like, he makes dumb shit. Like, he says dumb shit. He was trying to sell the third line, and the playoffs cannot win. This is the reality. Your team is constructed in a way that cannot win in the playoffs. And at this point, as a fan, if you're okay with that, or if you've just given up on the idea that they're like a serious contender, that speaks to your lack of being an informed fan who wants to hold your team accountable, and just being the rah-rah guy who's going to be okay with whatever and feeling powerless, like you can't hold your team accountable. Like, don't freaking buy it. Don't support it. Critique the pundits. Like, Dangle's trying to sell the team that can compete in the playoffs. And it's up to the fans to be able to call him out on that. But you're trying to defend the views, and you're trying to justify it, and you're trying to put it on other things. And you try to say, like, oh, you cannot compare the Leafs and the Panthers when the Panthers are a contender and the Leafs can put a contender together because of the cap thing. All right, I'm going to break that down real quick for you. Look at the Panthers last year. We made the finals, which you haven't done at all, right? Look at the team that the Panthers have, bro. The Panthers, Cito had to deal with cap issues, with buyouts, previous buyouts from him. We didn't have a good cap situation last year. We had AHLers playing. We had the Stahl brothers, the corpses of the Stahl brothers. Zach Dalpe. You ever heard of Zach Dalpe? The dude was starting in the playoffs. Mahura started every single game in the playoffs. We had Lundell having to play on the first line after injuries. Like, we had Nick Cousins, a fourth liner in the top six the entire playoffs, and we got to the finals. We had no money. Look at all the signings this year that Cito made. $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. Everybody, Lumber makes $100,000. You just pay Connor Dewar over $1 million. Everybody on the fourth line and third line of the Panthers had last year making $1 million or less. We pay $3 million for Rodriguez, $3 million to Lustrine. You give 3.75 to Domi, who is not going to win you in the playoffs, is not as good two ways as Rodriguez and as Lustrine. That's bad management. Your GM sucks. Like, you're straight up, and you need to hold that accountable. And you need to look at it with a critical mind, the same way that we looked at the previous iteration of the Panthers ownership and GMs, and they stunk. They put like fancy teams together that couldn't win in the playoffs, couldn't do anything. It was all mirage, and they got embarrassed. And then came Cito and changed everything. So that's the kind of accountability you need to have as a fan base, and be real about this stuff. Like, if you're going to be rah-rah or whatever, or justify it, we don't have the money to do it. You just have bad construction. Who told this guy to give Nylander that contract this past year when you can win? So I just want to be real about this stuff. Like, if you're here for the rah-rah or get defensive or defend Steve Dangle's an idiot, in my opinion. And again, I understand what he does and why he does it, and he's entertaining. From a hockey, like, informed perspective, he's a moron. And this is the other thing that I want to say. The dude scoffed at the idea of getting Andrew Peeke last year, and then the Bruins got him and put up a fight and beat you in the playoffs, right? You would never consider Adam Boquist, and we got him for like $7 for minimum, right? And you're paying OEL like whatever it is, 3.75 or whatever. That is the difference between our teams. We got Schmidt for $100,000 because he wants to play with Maurice and come to a winning team. You haven't built that culture. Austin Matthews does not attract players. Only players who want to put up points to get more money. That's who you attract, right? Be real about that. Because the last thing I'm going to say, because they're looking at it. I'm gonna bring the receipts just to end the freaking argument. Your two boys, Nylander, Matthews. I'm not even going to go after Marner because that's too easy. And Tavares is it's old guy. Your two boys in the playoffs. William Nylander has three game winning goals in the playoffs in 8 seasons there. 3. This playoff run, Barkov, defensive specialist known for shutting people down, has 4 game-winning goals in just one playoff run in less than half the games that Nylander has been there. Your playoff clutch guy that McKee and Dangle love to say, it's the perfect Leafs player, doesn't get bothered by anything, loves to play here. People need to be like Nylander so they can come. It takes a special kind of player to play in Toronto. 3 game-winning goals in 8 years. Our defensive specialists, not even known for putting up cookies or trying to cheat, 4 game-winning goals. I'm not even going to compare him to the top game-winning goals guys for the Panthers. What I'm going to do is compare Matthews to our guys. Austin Matthews has 6 game-winning goals in 55 games. Carter Verhaeghe has played 55 games in the playoffs exactly the last 3 years with the Panthers. He has 10 game-winning goals. He has more goals and more assists than Austin Matthews in the playoffs in the same amount of games. Carter Verhaeghe, all right? Like, look at what Tkachuk has done the last 2 seasons. 6 game-winning goals in just 2 runs. And in fewer games, 11 fewer games, basically same amount of points as Austin Matthews his entire career in the playoffs, in fewer games, the last 2 seasons with the Panthers in the runs, and the same amount of game-winning goals. And of course, got him to a final. You guys would have killed Tkachuk this season, the way he started, how slow he started. He wasn't scoring. He was hurt, and you guys would have killed him in Toronto. This is why people don't want to play there. This is why Ryan O'Reilly doesn't want to play there. You would have killed him. And Maurice kept saying he's playing 2 ways. He's not cheating. He's not trying to put up the points. He's playing the right way. He's helping the team win. And he still helped us win this year. That is the difference, yo. That is the difference. You want to say whatever you want to say. Like, get your boys, bro. Your boys don't show up in the playoffs. They're like frauds. Austin Matthews, your main boy. It's a game 2 against the Bruins. Oh my God. Like, took over the game. Like, Barkov does this every night, bro. Every night. And you just see everybody yelling. I don't see you like fawning over him or whatever. Get out of here. You wouldn't trade Nylander for Reinhardt. And Reinhardt can score and play 2 ways and give you more in the playoffs and win you a game-winning Stanley Cup goal. That's clutch, bro. And you wouldn't trade Nylander for him. So keep Nylander and keep sucking in the playoffs. That's all I got to say, bro. You're just getting pissed about all these people trying to defend their people. And I'm saying now because I felt the same way about the Panthers with Huberdeau, and 2 years ago, I hated that team. Everybody loved it. In the playoffs, it was embarrassing. And I want everybody gone. And I'm glad Cito made the trades. So that's how it is. Like, if you're here for the rah-rah stuff, if you're here for like the whatever. We don't have the team to compete. Your team should be competing. It's embarrassing that it's not a contender. Don't say it's not a contender. Everybody thinks that they should be a top 10 team in the league and should be making runs or whatever. They lose to Montreal, they lose to Columbus, they lose to the Panthers team with like half corpses out there. Get out of here, bro. Anyway, just want to make it clear. If you don't want to be real about your team, don't come. Don't listen to us.
All right. Well, thank you for watching, guys. We'll catch you all next week.
No, bro, it pisses me off so much, bro. And I know it's like one guy, whatever, but like, get out of here, bro. Anyway, that's it. It's self-explanatory. I can't wait to the seats. Do your thing. See you in the playoffs. I hope we play you in the first round.
Yeah. All right. Well, all the Maple Leaf fans that we gained, the two people that we gained, we're about to lose at least one.
No, bro, just be real. I want to be real. Like, I want to be real. I'm not saying we have to agree. We don't have to agree, but like, come with data, come with info, come with something. Don't say like, oh, the Panthers are a contender and the Leafs are not. Like, get out of here. The Panthers they couldn't feel the team last year, bro.
Yeah, well, I think the Nylander point, it's a valid one because I kept hearing that from pundits, like he's a playoff guy. He's the only guy that shows up in the playoffs, and I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, okay, is he really showing up in the playoffs? Because none of that core four really shows up in the playoffs. They haven't gone long enough in the playoffs. They haven't been able to make a run to actually have stats that make any sense. So yeah, that's one of the most overrated team in the league, if not the most.
Bro, Verhaeghe has more points in the same amount of games and more game-winning goals than Austin Matthews in the playoffs. It's embarrassing, bro. You should be going after after Pappy. Pappy is a fraud in the playoffs. You know how Sid Cicero said that Messi was a fraud? Austin Matthews, I'm calling it right now. Fraud.
Yeah, the playoffs are a whole different beast. And yeah. All right. Well, let's get started with our top fives. Good luck with my list. I have no idea where it is.
No. Let's do a quick Stan Bowman thing because
that's right. Let's get into that.
I try to inform myself actually and listen to some of the Oilers reactions. I know the fans were pissed and all that. I listened to the Locked On Oilers. I saw an interview with Frank Saravalli, and that's another thing. I'm gonna call it right now for Oilers fans. Saravalli, least favorite pundit in the whole NHL. Like, I can't stand Saravalli. He was completely trying to support Bowman. You can tell it's so transparent that he's just trying to keep the relationships to be able to get news and be able to have an in and whatever. The way he's been defending this and justifying it, and he does that for certain people. I don't know. He just seems like he's too transparent with his interests, and
a lot of people don't like him.
And also he has the worst takes and the worst opinions and predictions. He's like terrible. He doesn't seem to know the actual game that well. He just covers the news, but anyway, his take on it was terrible, and people went after him. So I'm glad. But my main thing about Bowman is, okay, aside of what happened, and whatever you want to interpret that, and you say, oh, Kyle Beach said it's okay, whatever you want to say, it's a failure of leadership, right? Whether he knew or he didn't know, because GMs are in the room. Like, GMs should be in the room. They are pretty close to the coaches. So either he knew or he didn't know, and either way, he failed. So that's one thing in terms of leadership and respect from the players and trust from the players. Just a reality. Dude got the job because he's who his daddy is, right? Scotty Bowman, greatest coach of all time. That's his daddy. So nepotism and all that stuff in there, right? Which is very common in sports, especially in management. So let's call that. But what everybody was pointing out, which is not, I'm not saying this, the hockey guy said it, the Locked On Oilers guy actually very thoughtful in showing us. What the hell has that guy done to merit this position? You look at his record, he inherited a team that Dave Talon had put together. Kane was there, Taves were there, Duncan Keith was there, Seabrook was there, Patrick Sharp was there. They have been to the conference finals already when he took over the team. And I know he was in the front office, but Talon was the one who put the team together. He takes that over in that 5-year window. They win because they hit the stride and they have the team kind of made. And then he was a GM for 6 years after that. The dude traded Teravainen for nothing away. Let go of Forsling. Lost Forsling.
Panarin.
Traded Panarin away for nothing. That he traded 2 first-round picks and Adam Boquist, 3 first-round picks, basically. A guy who just was like 20 years old, 19 years old. 3 for Seth Jones, and immediately gave him an extension for over $9 million. We'll get to the list of overrated player. Spoiler alert: Seth Jones is in my list. It's like, what is he's has a history of really bad trades, bad asset management, and he was a GM for 11 years. And you know what he never did through the draft? Get any next generation support to either win, post 2015, or substitute Tays and Kane. And he gave a really bad extension to Seabrook and let some guys go that he should have extended. He's actually a pretty mediocre. I mean, I've seen like people give him grades of everything he did. It's like a C- GM. And you just went out of your way to get all this bad press to hire that guy because of his last name, because he happened to take over the team when they won cups. I just don't get that hire. I think it's ridiculous. I think they could have hired somebody else who can do a good job and avoided all of this. And it's not even, again, all the problematic stuff and all the lack of leadership and the bad press, the pressure that's going to put on the players and all that stuff at a critical moment where you need to win and when you need to re-sign your best players. But that aside, the guy's not even a good GM, bro. So anyway, that's my takeaway. My biggest takeaway is like the guy's not even a good GM. So now I question the decision-making in the Oilers front office.
Yeah. Even if you're able to get past the whole Kyle Beach thing, which, if you do, that's fine. That's, at least you know who you are deep inside, if you're able to just get past that. Because I remember when Coach Q, when the whole thing kind of came out 2 years ago, and the whole thing happened with Quenneville. As a Panthers fan, I was so disappointed. Like, what's gonna happen now? Oh no, the team is gonna suck. That was my first thought. So I get those people. I get it if you're coming from that perspective. But yeah, the point that as a GM, he's nothing spectacular is just weird to me. I have no idea why they hire him. Like, I have no idea. Like, is there no one else out there? No, like, up and comer, no, like, smart guy that can make some moves. What interview process did you go through? How many people did you interview?
Do you ask him about? Do you ask? Okay, again, the other stuff aside, and that's easy to say, but yeah, I mean, I remember that biggest mistake Cito has ever made with the Panthers.
Yeah,
he let him coach one game after the news came out. That will forever be Cito's worst moment for sure, and I criticize him for that. I think that was a really terrible decision. And, it's a cold business and I get all that, but my biggest thing is, if you're betting this guy, do you sit him through and ask him, like, what about this trade? What about this trade? What about this extension? What about this thing? How come you didn't draft anybody? I mean, his biggest draft was a Kirby Doc, who's like a 3rd overall pick, who's still underperforming at 23 in Montreal. Like, he has no draft record. He has no trade record, no great trade record, and no great, like, extension or contract, like getting a cheap contract record. His biggest extension was Seth Jones, and again, we'll get into it. But anyway, yeah, man, just bad decision, bro.
Yeah, it's a weird decision. At the very least, it's just questionable. Like, what are you doing? What's the process here? I don't know. That was a weird one. That was very unexpected, I think. But yeah, let's get into the top fives.
Have some fun for the 2 people left listening to this. The Leafs fans who are not going to stick around. I just pissed off the Oilers fans, Leafs fans. The podcast is going to win and driving people away. But, like, just trying to keep it real. Like, we want real. We want realness, man.
Yeah.
That's all we're interested in.
Yeah. All right, let's get started with the underrated list. I think the overrated is going to cause some chaos in the comments. So let's start with the underrated. I'll let you go ahead and go first. I don't have mine in order, so it's just the top 5 players that I feel the most underrated.
I do all the pre-work and you do jack shit.
I mean, I just Google, like, most underrated players, and the top 5 I'm playing.
I just said we're trying to keep it real, and you're like the most fake fan ever.
Oh, you keep it real. I mean,
All right. I mean, this is random. Whatever. You can pick a million names. You can look at it from a
so you
million.
you have them in order.
I do. I do.
All right. So do your number five then.
All right. So I'll go through my five real quick, and then you can react, and then we'll go back and forth. Underrated. My number five, Charlie McAvoy. I think Charlie McAvoy is a guy who, because he doesn't he puts up points, and he's the number one guy. So that's obvious. Why I think he's underrated is that he can give you some of that offense. He has that skill, but the dude is actually really solid on defense and really physical. He has that really great combination of a guy who can be kind of dirty and nasty when he has to be, has that Boston Bruins in him, and sometimes can go a little bit over the top with that. But it's like Matthew Tkachuk thing, where like he can be an instigator, he can be dirty, he can be nasty, he can fight, but he can score. He can be a nightmare to play against. I respect him. I would want him on my team. I think he's a leader on the ice. And I think because when we look at the list of defensemen that always get considered for all these things or that fans talk about, he's not necessarily always mentioned in that top five or even sometimes top 10 lists of defensemen in the league. We tend to go with the flashy names. This is where the overrated thing comes in. I don't have some of those names, but like Quinn Hughes and like all these guys, like they get the shine and because of all the points and how he looks. Wow, that looks so great. McAvoy doesn't look as flashy, but yeah, I think he's a legit like top. Yeah, if you give me a list of defensemen to take into my team, I'm seriously going to consider him being one of the first people I take. So I have McAvoy as my five. Number four is Noah Dobson. Noah Dobson I really watched closely last year with the Islanders, and I think the Islanders are holding him back because of the way that they play. The dude is incredible. The dude is unstoppable. The dude is a machine, like in terms of offense, in terms of moving, his ability to skate, to get pucks through. He's awesome at getting pucks through. He's already starting to get a lot of points. Like he got a ton of points this season and last year too. He's only 24, I think. This guy to me doesn't get named enough. I think he's still kind of on that coming up kind of a thing. And again, playing with the Islanders doesn't help because they haven't gone far in the playoffs. They don't look great on offense. But that dude, again, out of the young defensemen in the league, he's up there for me in terms of people that I would take. He looks incredible. And he's a right-handed shot who plays on the right. So Dobson to me is number two. Number three, I think is Brady Tkachuk, man. I think Brady Tkachuk is
that's a really good one.
Yeah, Brady Tkachuk is an incredible, like it's a really good offensive player, but again, doesn't look flashy, is actually kind of bigger than his brother, more physical in a way. But yeah, I think he can hurt you more than Matthew can if he hits you. But even at his young age, and I know at times he can go overboard and stuff, even against the Panthers. But yeah, man, just a natural leader. I think he's that kind of guy that you root for, that you want to win a cup because he deserves that. He's that kind of guy that could take you in a deep run in the right circumstances. I think his team has let him down. His coaches let him down. And then people try to put it on him as being immature or going over the top as a leader or whatever. But yeah, I think Brady Tkachuk should get more shine as an offensive player. And it's funny because I have one other player on his team that I think is in my list of overrated players, and this is why he doesn't get as much shine. Number two, I had to do it. I wasn't going to do it, but I had to go Panthers. Verhaeghe, man. I just gave you the stats. Verhaeghe, what he did in the playoffs, better than Matthews, better than Austin Matthews, objectively. And just no game-winning goals, clutch score, more points. And he's not even the number one option in the Panthers. So sometimes he's playing on the second line. And so I just think that he doesn't get enough respect. In the last 3 years, he's put up a bunch of goals in the regular season. He's a clutch scorer. He can be annoying. He can frustrate you when he's not going. He'll look really poor on defense. But when the guy's locked in, he just shows up when it matters, man. And so, yeah, I just have to say, I think Verhaeghe is that guy that is super underrated. And my number one guy is a guy that a lot of people name as underrated, but I had to give it to him, is Braden Point. Like, Braden Point, it's objectively a guy that I would take over Austin Matthews for the playoffs. If you just look at that.
He's a superstar, man. Just people don't talk about him.
The two runs, if you look at the numbers he put up and the two runs when the Lightning won back-to-back, he scored 14 goals each year in the playoffs, put out a shit ton of points, a huge plus player, great in the faceoffs, a nightmare, like goes to the front of the net, little guy, third-round pick. He's not even like a, top 5 pick, the shiny little star boy. Like, do have to earn it. and overcome everything, overcome size, overcome all this stuff, and they do, like, not just the amount of points and goals and all that, but just his leadership, his winning mentality, how much is done in the playoffs. Like, he doesn't get talked about enough. And my last point about why he's underrated, a guy recently did a top 10 list of centers in the league, and he left that point and put like 3 guys that were like, you can't put, I mean, the guy had Jack Hughes ahead of Barkov, which he got eaten up in the comments. That's ridiculous. But that's it. That's the issue. Jack Hughes, because he looks pretty, he looks fast, he looks flashy. What has he done other than get injured and not gotten far in the playoffs? And I know he's still young, but like, this is where people kind of, how are you looking at the game, bro? How are you evaluating, And Braden Point is better than all those guys. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you could argue, like, if you include the playoffs, he's been better than Matthews over the last 7-8 years. So yeah, I think he's the most underrated player in the league. I didn't put Barkov, guys. See, not trying to be a homer. He finally got his shine. Barkov did. I think
he's no longer underrated.
No. People finally got to see what
he had a really good playoffs. I was looking at at his like compilation for the playoffs, and he was excellent, man. But yeah, all right. Let's see what
you don't disagree with any names, right? I got some.
No, that was really good. I mean, Braden Point is underrated. Maybe not. Like, yeah, I get it, but if you ask most fans, they will say he's a great player. But yeah, it's just, I feel like underrated is more about like players that are not talked about enough.
But I think he's not in the context of even his own team. It's always Kucherov and Stamkos and Hedman and Vasilevsky, and then you get the point. And I don't know that that's actually fair. I think he's done more in the playoffs for his team than Kucherov has, than Stamkos has. So, it's like Verhage in the Panthers. Like, he's the clutch guy, and that's why I think he's underrated too.
Yeah. All right. About to make some people mad here. Yeah, I have I think I talked to you about him before. I know he's not like I know there's some stuff there with him personally, but at number 5 I have JT Miller. Just, he's a veteran, someone that's not really talked about at all. And I'm looking at most of my list, or if not all, is based on just last season and players that kind of did really well and weren't talked about enough. JT Miller, he had 103 points, 37 goals, 66 assists, plus 32. I think he's just an excellent player, kind of a quiet guy.
That's the quietest 100-point season I think ever, unless you're like a Vancouver Canucks fan.
No one really talked about him, and like, he's not a name, like if you tell any random fan right now that's not a Vancouver fan, like, give me your like top 10 point getters last year, and I don't think he'll make anybody's list. Just one of those guys. Next on the list, not necessarily in order, because I think this guy is like one of the most, if not the most underrated player now, is Sebastian Aho. I really like him. Still a young guy, only 26 years old. He has a personality. He steps up when the team needs him. He's not a flashy guy either. Great two-way player. I really like him. I don't know why. I just get a good vibe for him.
Yeah, he's a nightmare to play against in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's another guy that's highly underrated. I think this next guy is a little controversial because he's not really underrated, but he kind of is in his own team, and that's Matthias Ekholm. Everybody, when they think of the Oilers, they always talk about Bouchard and that offensive output, but Ekholm is kind of like that glue that holds that defense together. He's that Tanev type of guy, almost, just a very strong guy, big guy, veteran as well. Had a great season last year. I thought he was great in the playoffs. But yeah, I don't know what you think of that one. Maybe
I think it's an excellent. I think it's an excellent pick because Bouchard overrated a little bit. I think Bouchard is on defense. He hides a lot of Bouchard's deficiencies, and he doesn't get enough shine for just how great. You need those guys, bro. You need those guys. it's like what Forsland does for Ekblad. It's like try to hide the deficiencies.
Yeah. I think that he does a great job. And he plays his role well. This next guy, I don't know anything about him. I was just shocked when I was looking at some stats and his name kept popping up, and I don't even know if I've seen him play. Dylan DeMello for the Jets.
Well, you can't pick a guy. I mean, the Melo's great, but like,
No, wait. His stats are like pretty awesome. Not just the plus minus. He was second in the league, but hits. He had like 160 something hits, and he played all 82 games. I'm just trying to like keep it, as wide as it can. I don't want to like just focus.
Can you remind me who led the league in plus minus last year?
Yeah, Gustav Forsling. But he's no longer underrated.
That's a joke.
He's no longer underrated.
No, he's not. He also got his shine. So I agree with
that. And with defensemen, like we tend to focus on the offense. Quinn Hughes, all these guys, but players like Ekholm and DeMello, like that's what you look for in a defenseman. Tanev is there, but I think he's probably
anyway
rated.
Sorry, what I meant to say with my joke is thanks, Stan Bowman, for getting us Forsling.
All right, and my last this last guy is just to piss you off. Evan Rodriguez of the Florida Panthers. He's not a star, nowhere near. He will never be.
He became underrated, I think, in the playoffs.
Yeah, he had an excellent playoffs. Ton of hits this season. I was surprised. He had over 100 hits.
Yeah.
He had more hits than 99% of the Panthers defensemen.
Well, the Panthers don't play that kind of style on defense. That's right. One thing that's deceiving. Like the Leafs fans get a lot of hits. But that's because of the like style and what they need to do. Yeah, but that's McKay gets a lot of hits. Even Liljegren gets hits, but that's because of the way that they have to defend. The Panthers defend more as a unit, and anyway, it's just a style thing. I'm not trying to say that like whatever. It's good to get hits as a defenseman. But like the Rako Gudas thing, Gudas got a ton of hits, like led the league in hits a bunch of times, and he was wild. He was not always good for the Panthers. So sometimes the hits are deceiving, but yeah, in this case, for a forward, it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. He was really good when he was in Pittsburgh. He was really good when he was in Colorado. One of those guys that you can put in your top 6. He's not gonna necessarily produce, but he will open up the space for other players. And in the playoffs, he was a beast, man. Every time you look at him, he was on the boards, battling, hitting people. I thought he was excellent, but yeah, obviously,
he's good. He's good 2 ways, like very good 2 ways. He can play center. He played right wing and left wing for the Panthers and played on all top 3 lines with different guys and always produced and always facilitated and always did his part. And then in the playoffs, had some really amazing games. Yeah, man. I mean, I've always liked him, but I became a huge fan in the playoffs because I got to see the best of him. So yeah, I don't hate the pick. Just it's more recent. He became more underrated. I think he might have been slightly underrated before that because he was a late bloomer and kind of moved around with Pittsburgh and Colorado. But yeah, I don't hate the pick. And yeah, the Melo people have talked about him, how physical and how really great he's been, and he doesn't get enough. I guess shine, so that's a good pick. Shout out to the Melo.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he popped up on that list, and I'm like, all right, let me look into him. But honestly, I'm super ignorant when it comes to him or most of the Jets. I don't really know a lot of players there, but it just caught me by surprise that's just one of those things like no one talks about,
Yeah, well, that's why we do the shows and throw out the names so that just people can look them up now and maybe pay more attention next time. To some of these players. All right, I know we got about 10 minutes, so we want to get through this. I'm going to give you my 5, and then we'll go to your 5 overrated, and then we can go back and forth. And random stuff, but I'm going to give you my 5 overrated. Number 5, Seth Jones, just because of the money that he makes. Everybody goes after Darnell Nurse. It's too easy, low-hanging fruit. Seth Jones is being treated as the number 1 defenseman in Chicago. He's been a minus player his whole time there. Doesn't put as much points as you would think. I just don't see that it justifies the salary or this whatever. He's a good guy. He's a good player. I just I just think it's a name, but it's not. I'm not impressed. Number four, I mentioned that Brady Kachuk had a teammate that gets a lot of shine. Team Stutzla, man. He puts up points and stuff, but he loves to dive. He's like the biggest faker. He's like a soccer player playing hockey, always faking, turns it over, plays no defense at all, gives up on plays, just tries to weave through people. And if he turns it over, that's it for him. He's always pouting. Like, I'm not a team. I don't think players respect him. I've seen players have gone after him and criticize him. I think he's overrated. Is he a flashy player? Can he score? Yes. Is he going to win you a championship? You got to hide him. Like, he's got to be that, the rest of the team has to carry, and then he gives you the points, but he's not going to be a leader. Number three, it might be a hater pick, but I've heard a lot of talk about this guy over the last few years. Mackenzie Weegar, man. I think in the regular season, he's excellent. He's excellent. He's always a top defense. His numbers underline really strong. He scored 20 goals last year. He's a guy that he hits and he does all this stuff. Listen, I saw him play for the Panthers. He's awful in the playoffs. He's a turnover machine. He does not have that, like, the verve that you need to win when it gets really tough. And yeah, he's a great story, the way that he a seventh round pick or whatever. Like, he's a great story in terms of how he went from, he's a late bloomer. And, he would hide some Ed Black's deficiencies too. I almost had Ed Black on my list for overrated. But I went with him because now everybody knows that Ed Black's not as good as everybody made him out to be. And his injuries and stuff, he's slowed down and he's accepting his role now. He's not even with Montour and Forsling, he was like the third best guy on the Panthers. But I just feel like everybody thinks Weegar is like hot shit. And I'm like, yeah, in the regular season, you give you points. Try him out when he gets serious. I think you'll get to see the real him, and we got to see him over and over. And I just don't think he's as good as people think when it really counts. Number two, Roman Josie. Or Josie. I can't even pronounce Josie, whatever. Dude, if you want to, like, I was like going after Matthews, and I'm exaggerating, guys, like whatever. You probably didn't get to this point, so you probably left pissed. I don't care. Go look at Roman Josie's like regular season performance and then playoff performance for Nashville, and you'll see why he's super overrated. And also, he's 34 already. He's like, I had a huge career, hasn't done shit, hasn't won anything. It always gets mentioned. Oh, he's great. He's all offense, the guy. So anyway, I think he's overhyped. I don't think he's a winner. I think he doesn't do much in the playoffs. And I do care about the playoffs, guys. Like, that's, to me, performing in the playoffs matters a lot. It's a whole picture. And my number one guy is a guy that I think a lot of people have started to call overrated, is Cole Caulfield. Like, I think Caulfield is always been mentioned as this firecracker over forward. Oh, if he wouldn't get injured, he'll get 40, 50 goals a season. And I'm like, well, freaking do it, bro. Like, do it. You're like a tiny guy. Every time I see you out there against the Leafs, you're like always frozen and always like skating around and trying to get shots in. Like, I just don't see it. And he gets talked about like this, like he's the Brinket or whatever. Like, I don't know. There's a bunch of other little guys that can do better. Braden Point, So anyway, I just think Caulfield is the way he gets talked about in Canada and stuff and in the league. I'm like, come on, talk about Verhaeghe. Stop talking about this dude, man.
Yeah, Caulfield, I feel it's he's definitely there now on the national stage in terms of overrated. And it's just expectations. A lot of times, like in some of the lists that we made today, it's based on expectations and how much attention they're actually getting. My list is super obvious, and it's full of stars or superstars that I just don't love. There's one guy that I had to replace because it was, he's not really overrated, but I just don't like him. Actually, I'll start there. Yeah, I don't disagree with anyone on your list. I didn't really think of those players. And I try not to go by salary because that's tricky, right? It's not their fault that they're making that money, but yeah, man. My number 5 is Kucherov, man. I can't stand the guy. I find him funny sometimes. Some of the stuff he did on the All-Star game or whatever. But I just can't stand him, and like the Lightning are such a like power play team. They always have been in a way, you know, they play you tough and hard, but like they don't really have two-way forwards the same way that other teams do. They just kind of relied on Vasilevsky for so long now that it's kind of just karma coming back to bite him in the ass. Um, he had a great season last year, but you know, even with that, like the team was barely there. I don't know. I just don't like him. I don't really care for all his points and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of it is just in the power play, and he has so much talent and like great vision, and he just, you know, whatever. He has one of those attitudes that I don't like. Um, so that will be like my number five. My number four, it's a very obvious one, Evan Bouchard. I'm so fucking tired of people talking about this fucking guy. Like he's the second coming of Jesus Christ. Like, dude stinks on defense. Like he was directly responsible for a goal in the finals. That was one of the dumbest like plays. I don't care for that. I don't like that type of defenseman actually. That offensive defenseman. Even when Ekblad was that for the Panthers, it wasn't something like that I loved. It's just a personal thing. All right, let's see. Number three, I'm gonna have William Nylander. I didn't want to have him as number one, but because he is a really good offensive player and he can score and he plays pretty, I can't stand him. I can't stand him. I don't get it. I don't get the fanboys. I love him, especially grown men with the Willie style stuff. Like I think he's just immature. He's a kid. I don't care, and I don't know, whatever. I think he's highly overrated, but probably just in Toronto.
Bro, if you look at his point totals for his whole career, how much money he's getting paid, it's insane.
Yeah. Number two, I already mentioned him last episode, Morgan Riley. Oh my god! And I know it's just
Bro, you're doing more damage for the Leafs fans picking all these guys.
Well, I just don't get it, man. Like that's another guy with a
But
narrative
people
of
know
like,
that he's not a real number one. It's just that that's the way Toronto set it up. But
yeah,
most people
yeah.
know he's not a number one.
I know, but like he kind of stinks. Like he kind of stinks. He sucks. He kind of stinks for a defenseman.
Oh,
He stinks.
he's had, I would say, maybe 2 seasons that have been really excellent, and then the rest of the time he puts up points, but he's a really huge liability on defense.
He's always cheating. He's always trying to skate in as a forward. I don't get that. And number one, this is, in my opinion, the most overrated player in the league. And you kind of mentioned him earlier, Jack Hughes. Yeah, please stop talking about Jack Hughes. Oh my God. Like, I get it. He's young, he's flashy, he's fast, he can score. Yeah, I don't get it with these kids like Caulfield, Hughes. I don't get that hype that the league builds up or like the fans of those teams build up when they haven't won. They haven't really proven themselves. They haven't really carried the team. There's just something missing there. Like if you watch the NHL and you kind of see certain teams and you see like a maturity to them, like the Kings, you know, they weren't great, but there was like a maturity to them. They play responsible for like most of the year and then they kind of fell off. Vancouver was very mature. Like those are teams that play very mature. Then you have like Dallas, who was like not as mature. They kind of dropped the ball there. The Devils for me are the same. Yeah, I don't get it with Jack Hughes and the Hughes brothers or triplets or whatever. It's weird.
It's just that. It's just the name. It's just the fandom around those guys, the flashiness. Yeah, Hughes put up 11 points in 12 games in the playoffs last year, but he was -4. You know, those guys in the Devils, they can be liabilities on defense, and they play a certain style that we'll have to see if it can actually win. And now with Keith there, and is he going to play more of that offense? We'll see, man. But I do think some of that, like the Devils in general, to me are overrated. But we'll see. We'll see how that comes across. You know, it's a very flawed list. I think you can pick it apart. But but Kucherov, it's hard, man. He's a champ and all that. Like,
yeah,
it's hard.
That's the thing. Like,
but you know, fewer game winning
doesn't mean he's not overrated.
You know, fewer game winning goals in his whole career than also Matthews in the regular season. Only have 1 game winning goal in the 2 runs that you know, the two full runs that the Lightning had to win, he only had one goal, that game-winning goal that mattered, and half of his points or more in the playoffs have been on the power play. So, like you say, he's a power play merchant, but at 5-on-5, just liable. And the Leafs had some breaks in some of the people they faced in the playoffs, but yeah, you can make the arguments for all those people. I just don't know that they're the strongest picks.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't want to overdo it with the list and go too deep into stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you got this far, man, leave your list in the comments. Let us know top 5 overrated, underrated players going into next season. Who do you think? Could be draft picks, new prospects, could be veterans, could be guys who are overpaid. However you interpret it, let us know who you think are, and if anybody we mentioned you think it's not the right pick.
Yeah. Please let us know where we went wrong. That's okay.
The whole show.
It's all opinion.
The whole thing. And expect more rants, man. That's just how I am, whether you like it or not. That's just, if I have an opinion, I'm not going to hold on to it.
Yeah, it's not a personal thing. Like we're
it's not like it's not like, the Leafs or whatever. Like I consume the content, again, it's not like I want them to win because they're an opponent of my team, but there's a part of me that would like to see them get it right. And maybe they just need to change some of the players and stuff. We'll see what Berube does. Just play the right way, man. Like, I respect the Bruins. I hate them, but I respect the shit out of them, right? Even the Lightning to some extent, I respect it. And it's just, Carolina, I respect
the Lightning.
I know what you mean. I mean, whatever. Like, I respect Cooper, even though he can be a passive-aggressive douche too. But I respect Carolina, even though Brendan Moore can say dumb shit like we didn't get swept. But everybody does that, And so, yeah, I just say, like, there's certain teams that I respect because of how they play, how they go about their business, win or lose. And I just think that Toronto is one of those, they talk and load it up and, this player, that player, and Willie Styles and all this stuff, and always look down on other teams, always make fun of other players, like do look down on names. Dangle, but they did the Samsonov last year, man, when he was playing bad. Like, Dangle went out of his way in a bunch of shows to humiliate the guy, send him out of town, send him to the minors. Like, the guy was going through a rough time. Bro, your defense couldn't do shit. I did a whole episode that had thousands of views, like breaking down the defense for the Leafs during those games and how awful it was. And I didn't see you going after those guys. I didn't see you go after Nylander for cheating at the blue line and going the other way and leaving Samsonov one-on-one, against Columbus, like cheating the whole time. You don't go after Matthews when he does that. You don't go after Nylander when he does that, not consistently. And you want to go after Samsonov, who won you the one series that you beat the Lightning where they overplayed you. And if not for Samsonov, you don't get through that series. What did Matthews do against the Panthers, against the Stahl brothers and Nick Cousins? 0 goals. So, but you are willing to go and humiliate that guy or run, Bertuzzi, like he was like Kiev's punching bag. But I didn't see you going after the guys when they really mess up. And that's my issue with Toronto. It's like, this is why players don't want to go, bro. They see that. I'm like, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to play. I don't want to fight for those guys. Oh, that's their leadership. That's what the coaches do. That's what also Matthews, how they protect Nylander. And then the other guy, Bertuzzi, he gets to be a punching bag. The guy that goes to the front of the net just because he can't score in that system is not being used the right way. So that's my thing, man. Just be real. Just be real about it. Like, nobody's saying these are bad people. It's just, be real about your team, and maybe that's the way to hold them accountable and get it right, man.
Yeah, and I think the most telling thing this upcoming season for the Leafs is how's Berube gonna manage stuff. If he's very passive and kind of just lets it be and keeps the status quo, then I think it's safe to assume that there's a lot of hands in that, in the decision making. And to your point about why Treliving's extending Nylander, I don't think that was Treliving at all. It's just Shanahan and from up top, and it's just kind of weird that they got Berube, and that's really the only change they made. Every team makes changes. You sign 2, 3, 4 guys every year because you have to stay under the cap. So you're kind of forced to get those $1 million players. So that's normal for every team. The difference is that you bring in, guys like OEL for 4 years and Tanev for like 27 years.
Or Bertuzzi for 5 and don't use him the right way. And then you extend Domi for 3.75 versus, Evan Rodriguez, or go? Can you find the next Lustrainen? Can you find those kinds of guys and
Yeah,
really
it's almost,
develop them?
don't
You
they have
know,
like the most money in the league?
Mikola, you never look to get Mikola with his size for
Yeah, scouting
2.25.
department for the Leafs stinks. I'll
Like,
say that.
you got to get Tanev. If that's the guy. He's like the savior. Give him 6 year no move clause, to a 35-year-old. So anyway, that's all
Yeah,
we're
weird
saying, bro.
signing. The
Like if
Tanev
Cedar were
thing
doing
is,
that shit, I'll be like, what the hell are we doing? I'll be
yeah,
like, this is insane.
yeah. The Tanev thing is extremely weird. Just the fact that that's what it takes for him to come. Then, like, shouldn't that be telling enough? Like, you had to meet all his demands. Same thing with Nylander, like full no trade clause. It's wild, bro. It's to me, it's wild. It's the most like fascinating franchise in the history of like sports. That's to me, it is. It's
Every second that you're not real as a fan or a pundit in Toronto, you're keeping players away. Now you can turn that around like Dangle does and say, "Oh, you're not built for this." With that, you should put that on a T-shirt. We're not built for this, and then in the back, the amount of years that you're going to go without winning a cup, because you're just going to keep adding up. Because you need real guys to go and win you a cup, and you need to build a culture, and you can't do
and
that.
you don't need to build around 4 or 5 guys. Like that's the weird part to me. Like just get 2 guys, maybe one's defenseman. So get 2 forwards, one defenseman, and a goalie, and build around that in whatever way you can. It makes no sense to me that Marner has to stay, Nylander has to stay, Matthews has to stay, and Tavares was signed for that money. Oh, it was Dubas. Dubas. Okay. So Dubas had free will. He could do whatever he wanted. But the second that he talked about that everything was on the table and word was that he was going to trade Marner no matter what, then the whole thing just fell apart. And then all of a sudden, oh no, he had this other job lined up. And I'm sure he had the other job lined up because he knew that chances were he was going to get fired. So once he couldn't have that power, that decision making, and I hate Dubas, I think he's an idiot. But once he didn't have that power, it kind of went away. And I don't know. To me, it's just interesting. There's other interesting things around the league that I want to talk about real quick. All these rebuilds, the Ducks, the Sharks, Montreal, like what are these teams doing, man? It's like the longest rebuild ever.
What the Panthers used to be is what the Florida Panthers used to be. Like, remember when we were drafting Nathan
The
Horton
Sabres
and
just
Stephen
gave
Wise
that
and
goalie alone.
Huselius? Remember Huselius, bro? I still got like nightmares about those
You know,
teams.
like Montreal is a team that comes to mind. Like you got to the finals, I get it. It was a bubble year, whatever. Or you got to whatever, as far as you got. Um, and then like what happened? Like it just falls apart. I don't see any moves. All these teams that try to rebuild by getting just a bunch of young guys, I get it. But let me make this a point. The Panthers try to do that. Out of all the young guys they drafted, only Barkov and Ekblad are left. They had Trocheck, they had Bukestad, they had Huberdeau. Who am I missing?
Even Kulikov had to leave and come back a veteran.
So they traded away Trocheck. Riley Smith they had at the time.
Marchessault
They
was here for a little bit.
got taken. Marchessault was here. A lot of those players left or were traded or whatever the circumstances were. And all you have from like 2012 to now is Ekblad and Barkov, essentially. So you don't need to keep all these guys,
No, man.
You can trade a Marner for whoever's out there that you think is going to get you
But look how
better.
quickly Cito built this team and how he did it. I mean, that should be studied. That should be a whole episode. All the layers of it. And the draft picks haven't even started to come alive now, because now next season we're going to see Mackey inserted for some of these guys, and finally going to see some of these picks come online. Jack Devine coming down the line and all that stuff. But yeah, the way he's built it through a bunch of different ways and finding the right people, taking chances, not overpaying, we didn't keep Montour, right? We didn't overdo it. We got Reinhardt at the right price. And I mean, to me, that's what you have to do, man. You have to be able to really build and really be honest about what you have and what it gives you, and then go find a thing. Don't keep Bruno just because he, got an award or whatever, or because he looked like he didn't hold the team accountable in the playoffs. Like, so you got a coach. So go Maurice, go get Maurice. And even though the fan base hates it, but you know that that's the right move. And so to me, that's the thing that some of these other teams are trying to build. And I would put like Buffalo in there, who's been in purgatory forever, and I would
Buffalo
put
too. Yeah,
Ottawa
I
in
just
there.
mentioned them.
Ottawa, and again, we'll see how the Devils do. Definitely have a lot of talent, but they've emphasized a lot of the offense still. And I know they have Markstrom and all that, but we'll see. We'll see. It's just, to me, it's just you have to know how to build the right. You need line identities, man. We'll do another episode, like about the scoring in the playoffs. I think that we should do a whole episode on line identity and how you build line identity and how the teams that win have very clear line identities. And I feel like that's actually missing. And Maurice is being very specific in the way that he's built those lines identities the last 2 years. I never seen before teams doing that unless it's winning teams. And yet every time it's like, remember that line of so and so and so. You remember the fourth line for the Lightning. You remember how deep the Vegas was. You remember all those guys with the Blues. Look at the Panthers, the third line with a kid in Lundell shutting people down. Lundell's plus 10 the last 2 years in the playoffs or whatever, bro. Like he's 22. So yeah, man, you don't need to wait. Jack Hughes 23, Coffey's 23. Lundell's 22 and a champ. You don't always have to, if you build the right team. You don't always need to wait till this kid's turn.
It's a team sport. Like, keep all your Bedards and Celebrinis. If you don't have the right team around that, and I think those teams drafting these guys, which makes sense, they're the top scorers. I think the league is not there yet. I think that's a whole different sport, that these teams think that by having all these young, flashy guys and scorers, they'll get there eventually. And only some of those guys actually develop to be NHL players. You need to play two ways in the playoffs. You need to play defense if you're a forward. You can't just have Jack Hughes skating around out there. You can't have Nylander skating around out there. You need those guys to contribute. There's nothing flashy about Verhaeghe. He has a great shot. He has an excellent shot, and he forechecks. That's it. He's not a good passer. That's it. That's all you have with Verhaeghe. Reinhart can score. His shot was much improved last year, but he mostly plays defense when he's there with Barkov, and that's how they win a lot of those games. That's why they win games 2-1, or boring games like the New York Ranger podcast.
Yeah, game one of the series, they lost 3-0. The most boring game ever. I mean, your team is fraud. Calling everybody frauds. All right, let's end there, bro. It's too long already, but yeah, it's just like too boring. Like, you're lucky you got the 6. You should have been sweep.
Yeah. So it's just fascinating. It's fascinating to us. And if you're still listening to this, we thank you, and leave us a like. Leave us a comment, like my brother said, about your top 5s or where we went wrong, etc. And we'll try to get back to you guys as soon as we can. And we'll be back next week with a couple more videos. All right. Peace.